and a half. We're at minus 8.5. There's a plus 8.5, minus 109 in the market currently. Our Pro report, which you can get if you sign up for an Action Network Pro subscription in the Action Network app, you get lots of cool stuff with that, including access to our Pro tools. And so they'll tell you things like 51% of the tickets are on the Wolves, 54% of the money is on the Wolves. And no surprise, since this has moved a point in their direction, we're tracking sharp action on Minnesota. Chris, I kind of wonder if this is more of a reflection of the number and less a reflection of the direction. Like typically we like to keep to the Matt Mitchell rule here, which is you win as a favorite, you cover as a dog, you win outright. Now that didn't happen in game four after Michael Fiddle took the money line and I took the spread because God hates me. But in general, I think that's like a pretty good rule to take here. But I do wonder at 8.5 if some of this is more about the number than it is a directional move on Minnesota, particularly because we are tracking this on the spread. And I'll check the money line numbers here in a second, but that's kind of my feeling on this is this just feels like, well, this is just too many points given the fact that Minnesota's probably within range of OKC more than two possessions.
Yeah, I think it kind of comes down to how you project these games and how much weight you put on the series as it's unfolding in terms of something like, for example, the point differential, because of that blowout win for Minnesota, their point differential in the series doesn't look as bad as maybe it otherwise would be. And so yeah, I think it's about the number, but I think in general, what we tend to see in the playoffs, especially late in these series, is books kind of set the line to where the sharps have to take the dog almost. You know what I mean? Because we continuously seen sharp action, as I mentioned at the top, on the underdog in the series, even if they're down, 2-1, 2-0, 2-1, 3-1, something like that. So I don't necessarily put too much weight on it. I just think that at that number, sharps are going to sharp. But just looking at Oklahoma City and the way they played at home, I factor that in a little bit more. So not afraid to take the favorite, and this is one of those sharp moves that I'm not really tailing or anything like that.
I always like it when our experts are immune to the sharp action, stand in the face of it. Michael Fiddle would never. Wolves Thunder money line. Currently 67% of the tickets are on OKC, 64% of the money on the Wolves, but we're not it hasn't moved the number significantly differentiated from the spread correlation, so there hasn't been sharp action on it. There's just more money on the other side. I got some trends for you going into this game, which kind of support the idea of a spread play and not a money line play. So home favorites up 3-1 are 79-20 since 2003. That's a pretty good number, but they're just 45, 52, and 2 ATS. Now, if you've been listening to the show, I like to separate this out by round because I think that there's a huge difference between a 1 seed up 3-1 at home on an 8 seed and a 1 seed up 3-1 on a 6 seed. I think there is actually a pretty big differential there. In the conference finals, home favorites are 6-2 straight up, 5-3 ATS, but our sample size gets smaller. Home favorites up 3-1 who won the game, to Chris Raybon's point, are 45, 32, and 2, and this is the big one here. The point differential in those games is plus 12. The average line is 8.5, right where this number is, and the average margin of victory if the favorite wins in these games is plus 12. That's why we've had given out best bets on alt plays for Oklahoma City, is if they're going to win this game, odds are that they probably win it by more than 8.5 points, but that also doesn't mean necessarily if at 12 you want to go crazy and be betting them for a mega blowout unless you think that OKC gets it done, in which case you can express that opinion in the market. Teams with 3 wins in the series is more than a 4-point favorite. So the idea here is you have a chance to advance. You are more than a possession favorite. 191 and 55, 78%, and 131, 112 and 3, 54% against the spread. That's above our line of profitability. Final one. OKC is 7-1 straight up and 6-2 against the spread in these playoffs at home, with an average margin of victory of 23.9 points per game. Not bad. Couple more that I'll talk about when we get to the total as well. Speaking of the total here, total in this game currently sitting at 221, 221 and a half in the market if you want to come back and fade the steam. This opened 219 and a half. 97% of the tickets are on the over, 98% of the money, but at 221 and a half, we started tracking sharp action. So this is coming back down a little bit the other way now that the market has gotten out here. I'll have a play on this later, where I once again am going to go against sharp action, which I personally do not love doing, but we'll see how that works out for me tonight. Want to let you know, Underdog is one of the best places to make picks during playoff basketball. And while they score buckets, you could score cash. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play right now in your state. Their app has over 100,000 five-star reviews and millions of players. To play, all you have to do is download the app and choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats. You can choose from things like points, assists, and so much more. Once you feel your picks feel good, you can play with as little as $1. And if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. We're going to do a dog and M lineup tonight. That's rebounds, steals, and blocks. Chris Raybon brings Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, the reigning MVP, higher than 1.5 steals. Obviously, second in the league in steals this season. The Wolves have had turnover problems throughout this series. Naz Reid, higher than 5.5 rebounds. He's gone over this in all 4 games. He just squeaked higher in game 4, but we'll take the higher on him. 5.5 rebounds. Rudy Gobert, points, rebounds, and assists. 17.5 points lower. We're going to do those three. Three correct is 2.42 times your money. Two correct is 0.91 on a very manageable lineup here. Download the Underdog app and sign up with promo code Buckets100 to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. That's promo code Buckets100. Must be 18 plus. 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska. 19 plus in Colorado for some games. 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text next step to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Let's do some best bets for possibly the last game of the Western Conference playoffs. Where has the time gone? We will get to it. We'll go around the horn. We'll give our bets, and then we'll do the cap on them. Joe Dellera, let's start with you. What do you like tonight?
So I'm going to be on SGA over 40.5 points plus assists, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker over 9.5 points.
All right, Chris Raybon, what do you think?
OKC on the spread, and Mike Conley under 3.5 assists.
Oh, I cannot wait for this Mike Conley cap. I'm on the over 220.5. Jaden McDaniels, 1.5 threes over. Julius Randle, 1.5 threes over. I'm also putting those together in a parlay at plus 305. All right. Oh, where to start here? Let's go to Joe Dellera. Let's start right with the headliner, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander over 40.5 points and assists.
So, I mean, Shea has just been cooking the Wolves this entire season. And aside from the blowout, he's been pretty consistent on this throughout this entire series as well. He's averaging 39 points plus assists during the series. That's including the blowout where he only had 20. So he's coming off a 40-10 performance in game 4. A lot of the potentials are really popping for Shea. He's averaging 8.3 dimes on 13 potential assists. So the thing here is that Minnesota hasn't necessarily been able to slow him down, and he's been able to get to the free throw line effectively, and he's continuing to break down their defenders. The other thing that I thought was interesting is they're kind of continuing to give him these like shots on the baseline. They are playing him in single coverage there, and he's just cooking them. So he's been really good at taking advantage of slight mismatches. And even when they were going under on some of his screens, we bet his over 1.5 threes last game. He was able to convert on 2 of those opportunities as well. So I think there's a lot of different avenues for Shea to find a lot of success, especially as Minnesota has seemed to kind of need to lean into a little bit more of an offensive lineup to keep up with Oklahoma City. And that's going to hurt their defense a bit as well.
Joe, can I ask why? I don't know. Are you on Shea Gilgeous-Alexander over 1.5 3-pointers in this one?
No, I didn't bet it this time. I know that he took 7 last game. He was 2 for 7 last game. I was thinking about doing it, but at the same time, I figured I like adding the looks there. I'm not sure if maybe they make a slight adjustment and say like, okay, well, we don't want to give you 7 opportunities to shoot from three. But if he does go wild from 3 point range, that's just better for my points prop here anyway. If they start trying to blitz him a little bit more, then that's going to help even with the assists. So I like the idea of the extra 3 point attempts raising his points floor a little bit.
I like that, Cap. That's very smart. Chris Raybon, let's go to you. Let's talk about. Oh, I gotta get this Mike Conley prop. Give me the Mike Conley under 3.5 assist cap.
Yeah, Mike Conley. I'm not expecting him to be much of a factor in this one. We saw him last game. He played only 19 minutes. He lost some time in the second half. You saw Shannon getting some minutes. I know that Joe likes Alexander Walker yet again to continue to thrive, and I think that's going to leave Conley falling short of this number for the fifth time in this series. He's been under 3.5 in all four against OKC in the playoffs. He's been under 3.5 in 5 of the 7 road games that the Timberwolves have played in these playoffs. And if you just look at the numbers, we talk about OKC and their home road splits and just how dialed in they are at home. Well, Minnesota, and some of this is, playing OKC, but their home road splits are pretty drastic as well. So on the road, Minnesota averaging just 102.1 points per game in these playoffs, making just 36.7 field goals compared to 118.1 when they are at home and making about 40, just under 44 field goals. So they're averaging 5 fewer assists as a team. So obviously that could kind of trickle down to Conley, who is going to start the game as the point guard, but I think he's going to probably see his minutes capped at around 20 rather than his normal like 24 to 28.
Okay. I like this. This is a smart play, especially the cap on the number of field goals relative on the road. What's interesting here is I will talk about real quick Jaden McDaniels and Julius Randle. Here's a weird thing. Yeah, the Wolves shooters are better on the road. And this has been a thing that I noticed last year, and then it's carried over this year. Jaden McDaniels is 34.6% from three at home. He's 45.8% on the road this postseason. Julius Randle, 27% from three at home, 43.6% on the road. Their attempts go a little bit up as well. I think that's mostly a product of them not having as much aggression on the road because the Thunder are awesome and every home team is going to be a little bit more juiced with the home crowd behind them. I think there's going to be a few more 3 point attempts in this game. I think Minnesota's got to keep taking threes if they want to be able to hang in this game. And Randall's been, I think his selection on threes has been really good. And the one mechanism the Wolves have been able to get to is the corner three for Jaden. That's the one mechanism. So there's probably an opportunity. We don't have it on a parlay tonight, but there's probably an opportunity for you to do a counter and an inverse correlated parlay with Conley under on assists, which I like still because a lot of his assists are to very specific personnel, like Rudy actually, and we don't know how much Rudy's going to play in this one. We'll talk about that later. And then still be able to get the over on Jaden and Julius because they'll also take those in transition a little bit, some pull ups there. So I like the overs on their threes, but I still think that the Conley under assist play by Chris is the sharpest play of them all.
Can we talk
Let's
about
talk.
this a little? Can we talk about that for a second?
Hit me.
So,
Yeah, hit me.
no. So this is an interesting question because we hear people kind of talk about these trends, and it's always tough to kind of figure out when you're in the postseason, like what is the relevant sample? Because you're saying McDaniel's in the postseason on a road, he's shooting better, but in the regular season, he shot 38 at home, 28% on the road. So, like, are you using like full season? Or do you think the opponent matters the most, or like? Why look at essentially, I guess, why are you looking at just the postseason versus like the entire season?
Yeah, so this goes back to last season as well in the postseason. So that's a big deal for me. Is I do think postseason and regular season are just completely different there. I think that you've got like a very different kind of correlation. Now he shot better at home than on the road in the postseason, but he also shot above 40% in the postseason last year. And that I think tailed off in the conference finals because he was above home on road splits last season going into the conference finals games. Now I get what you're saying on the sample. I think that's absolutely true. I'm kind of wired to think of the postseason as such a different mechanism because your quality of shots is different. A quality of shots for a Jaden McDaniels is different. The mechanisms you take to get there, the number of like, screw it, I'm going to shoot the three is a little bit different. Your primary initiators and playmakers that draw more attention and gravity are on the floor more. So, like, all those kind of factor in here for me. Now, you could be absolutely right that like this is just too small a sample and he goes under absolutely 100%. But from where I'm at and how I've watched Jaden throughout this postseason, I do feel like he has been, for whatever reason, they've been a little bit weird at home, and he's been a lot better on the road during these playoffs. And that goes back to last season. Actually, the postseason before, I noticed it as well. So I want to go ahead and get in there on that. Is that good enough?
Oh no, it's just a really interesting question. I thought,
I do too. Yeah.
the listeners and the people watching would benefit from. I think for me, I tend to look at the attempts when it comes to threes because in my personal model, it takes about 250 attempts for percentage to stabilize. So
Yeah.
I'm regressing that a lot more heavily. But like to your point, every series is going to be different, and just there could be different game scripts. When you're on the road, you might end up getting more attempts because you're down more, right? And so you
Yep.
need more threes. And so a lot of times that's what I'm looking at more so than the percentages, which I think have a lot more noise.
Totally fair. That's really good pushback, Chris. I honestly think that's really good pushback. Let's go back to Joe and talk Nickeil Alexander-Walker over 9.5 points.
Yeah, so I've been betting this a couple games in a row now, and I still feel like there's a little bit of meat left on the bone. To me, Oklahoma City is just selling out on Ant to basically force anybody but him to beat them. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker has played a really big role for Minnesota throughout this series, and he's playing good minutes on both sides of the floor, and I think that's what's allowing him to stay on the floor. So he scored 8, 17, 12, and 23 points against Oklahoma City, and he played a series high 29 minutes last time out. So I think that there's reason to see that stabilize, to see that continue, and I think that we can see him scoring in a multitude of different ways. I considered his over 1.5 threes, but he still is a viable cutting threat. He can score off the bounce, and he does get a lot of those corner three opportunities. So I like him to go over again. And we, just as you guys were kind of talking about, Minnesota probably needs to shoot a lot more threes to stay in this game. Alexander Walker, we're seeing his minutes trend upwards, while we're seeing Conley's numbers come down. I think this is a good opportunity for him to see an expanded role in a critical game 5 for Minnesota.
This is a very basketball sports writery take, but I feel like Chris Finch trusts Nickeil Alexander-Walker a lot.
Yeah.
And that to me is also there's money implications coming up. So I always like guys there in money situations as well. I like this cap as well. I'm on the over. This is mostly built off of I think that this game scripts like the rest of the games in the series as the normal version of the series is OKC creates a lot of turnovers, the Wolves create a lot of threes. The Honestly, the Wolves offense has been a better unit than their defense in the series, and that's obviously a big reason why they're down 3-1. Minnesota has not been the defensive force that they were last year, and I don't think it's fair to just be like it's Julius Randle swapped out for Cat. It's not like Cat's an amazing defender, as we're finding out in that Pacers series, but I
Had
also
to give
think
me a shot.
I had sorry, Joe. I also just think that this game pretends a little bit more as an over based off of I think if OKC wins, they're going to put up a huge number here. They get the turnovers, they get the shots, all those kind of things scripted. I like the over here. If Minnesota wins, I think it's a close game in which they're going to have to produce a lot of points in close games. We've seen those games go over with the stoppages and then those kind of scores like that. There is not a high probability for me of Minnesota winning this in a comfortable 10, like a under script for me would be Wolves by 12, and I do not find a good game script to get us to that outcome. So that's where I'm at on that one. Chris, OKC -8. Take us home with this one.
I think Oklahoma City is the far superior team defensively, as you kind of alluded to. I just think they match up better. Minnesota is kind of being forced to make concessions with their lineups. They're still not getting enough, I think, out of Gobert. Like Conley's in their starting lineup. He's a non-factor half the time. So I just think there's not enough pieces there for Minnesota. And remember, you just had these two games in Minnesota. Now you're going back to OKC. So the whole kind of tenor of this game could look a lot different. You could see OKC kind of get back to it, blowing teams out. As you mentioned, a point differential at home of just under 24 in this postseason, and they are 6-2 straight up, 6-2 against the spread in on their home floor. And when you look at their road point differential, it's actually -7 because of that blowout. So just about a 31-point swing for OKC home versus road in this playoffs. Now, that's a small sample size, but in general, this season, they have been dominant at home. Their median margin of victory across all their home games is 16 points. So you're talking about, over 5 possessions. So when you look back at the trends in, favorites in the postseason over the last 2 decades that open under double digits. So they open, -9.5 or less. They're covering about a 57% clip across all playoff games. So usually when the books open, these favorites, and when they open -7.5 or more, it goes up even more. So when the books open favorites this large, it's usually for a reason. I understand the money on Minnesota, but I'm not digging it. I'd rather take some OKC alt lines because this team has been blowing teams out at home. They've already done it. They won by 15 against Minnesota at home, and they also blew them out by 26 in a game that was pretty much even at halftime. So I think taking OKC alt lines, double digits, 12, 15, 18, every possession, every 3 points makes a lot of sense.
Chris has been awesome. I think when he's had these angles directionally, when Raybon has these kind of like feelings for game script, I pay a lot of attention to it. You could not get me on Wolves tonight if you like. Just start with like Chris Raybon likes OKC -8.5, specifically in this kind of a spot. Chris has been really great with his instincts on this, as well as all of his plays in the Action Network app. Let's do a little open run, and then we'll hit the parlay on the way out. So, Joe, I want to hit you with this. A lot of questions on Case and Wallace. There's a Bruce Slayton likes Case and Wallace over 12.5 PRA. Mock Rivers, great name, likes over 2.5 assists. Any sort of feel for Case and Wallace in this game? I don't really know what to do with the rest of OKC's rotation because it feels very much like Dags is because he gets to play from such a position of strength. He gets to kind of um, liberal arts major it and just do whatever he feels. And so that's where I kind of wind up on this. What are your thoughts on Case and Wallace props tonight?
I kind of struggle to figure out, like, kind of to your point, exactly how they play him. And then honestly, even if he does get some minutes, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to convert on those opportunities. They have a number of other relatively higher usage guys. So he's competing not only with the other role players, but they generally aren't leaving him alone on the court without a Shea, without a J-Dub, even without a Chet. And I think that kind of cuts into what his upside is, at least in the scoring department. I think if I was gonna do anything with him, maybe I'd want rebounds, just as kind of like a hustle type of stat. If he does get extended run, then that's, I think, the stat that would kind of work for him, where he's going to see a little bit more opportunity. And that's, I think of rebounds almost, especially for some of these defensive minded players. I think of rebounds as almost like a usage or like a minutes type of stat, where if they're just out there on the floor, they're going to happen, especially because we think that Oklahoma City, or rather, I'm sorry, Minnesota is going to need to shoot a lot of threes. So I do think that could lead to maybe a couple extra rebound opportunities for Case and Wallace, just as those are going to be longer rebounding opportunities. That's probably what I would look at, but I don't need a play on Case and Wallace today, so I'm not going to force it.
Uh, Philip OX is talking about over 1.5 free throw attempts for Nas. I like this one. Over 2.5 fouls for Caruso and over 3.5 free throw attempts for Randall the Gamble. I like that look there, at least as a conversational piece. Andrew Law says he likes Caruso under 2.5 assists, Randall under 4.5 assists, and Wallace under 3.5 rebounds. He does mention they're all heavily juiced. Chris, does this look like, because I had said I was on the over and you were kind of curious about it. Do you think this pretends more as a low assist game for the Wolves?
Yes. I think any road game at the Oklahoma City Thunder qualifies as a low assist game for the opponent
Yeah.
because they are going to score fewer points. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just kind of what's been happening. Now, of course, anything can happen in a one game sample size,
sure.
but generally speaking, I already mentioned, just looking at Minnesota in this very postseason, they are 16 points fewer on the road, and that equates to 5 full assists per game lower. So I would look to bet Oklahoma City stocks, rebounds, things like that over. I would look to bet all the ancillary stats for the Timberwolves under, unless you think they're going to pull the upset. Then obviously do
Yeah.
you? But when you just look at the numbers, Oklahoma City's scorer, at home, they tend to give them more steals, blocks, those kind of things. So we're seeing about a 3 stock difference in this postseason for the Thunder when they're at home. So that's why a guy like SGA, I think this is the time to play his steals, play his blocks. I wouldn't play any Caruso unders necessarily. I think him and Wallace will get significant minutes. And if OKC is in a close game, I think they get minutes because of their defense. But those guys also will get minutes in a blowout as well because they'll probably come in the third and then play into the fourth as well. So I do like that Wallace over, and I'm a little hesitant to play Caruso unders, even though he's just a pretty volatile player. So I'd rather get some plus money on that if I am playing an under.
Beef Foodie mentions OKC third quarter -1.5. Mentions they are the best third quarter scoring team. That's true. We gave that out yesterday on Buckets pregame for this game. So you can go check out that episode for the cap on that. But OKC third quarter is a pretty good look here, especially I think if you want to throw that into an SGP, not a bad look. I also like this. Andrew Law's angle on the Caruso assists. He says Caruso assists are probably correlated with his steals too. That's not a bad look because he does get out and
Mm-hmm.
run, then throw lobs, and then
Yeah,
kickouts. That's a
I
pretty
like
good look
that.
there too. That's smart by Andrew Laws. Also, shout out to David Martell who joins us for most of these shows for a true lunatic parlay of in college baseball, Oregon is in the Eugene region and Thunder to win the title parlayed is +100. Let's have some fun, he says. Nice
That's
job by
sick.
David. Before we get out of here, let's do a parlay. OKC -8.5 from Chris Raybon. Shai Alexander over 40.5 points and assists from Joe Dellera. Nikhil Alexander Walker 10 plus points from Joe Dellera. And I will throw in Jaden McDaniels 1+ threes, which now I'm nervous about after Chris Raybon asked me about the sample of it. So I will kill this parlay. You put those together, there's a +684 in the market on an SGP. Appreciate you guys being with us. Make sure to check us out post game. Brandon Anderson and I will either talk about game 6 and the chances of the Wolves doing the impossible, or we will more likely talk about OKC's finals market and start looking ahead to those and wrap up the Western Conference playoffs with Brandon Anderson, a very sad Wolves fan. That's always a good time. Follow Joe Dellera at Joe Dellera on Twitter and the Action Network app at Chris Raybon as well. I'm at HP Basketball. My thanks to Gifford Gould for producing these live shows. He does such a great job of helping us out today. Thanks so much, Giff. We'll see you guys again after the game. Appreciate you guys being with us. Till next time, let's get buckets.